And we're back. Okay, so we did our French fry review, and we're gonna act like everything is totally normal and that I didn't just have major technical issues for 35
So are you
minutes.
recording this right now?
This is being
Yeah, that's
recorded.
his
Yeah, we're
intro.
This is our
on.
intro?
We're
His
on. This is our
intro is him
intro.
talking
I
about
like to
his
be honest with the
technical issues
audience.
that
I
no
like to
one.
be honest. I had a lot of technical issues. We were sitting here waiting, and so now we're live. I
This is
like to
your
be very
public
transparent.
apology to the fans.
Yeah, this is. I'm sorry to the three people who listen to this podcast who were had no idea what I even had to go through. So fine, this is how it's starting. All right. Well, we did our fry review. Burger King fries disappointing. Stay away. We're now moving on to the top of the week. And Josh, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, we are gonna focus on fantasy football.
Here we go. The
But I
season has
think
started.
I think before we go fantasy, I say we do a quick NFL week recap from week one. Just
Okay.
just any big takeaways, any teams that stood out to you to start off, week one.
You want to do that
So
before we talk about fantasy football?
Yes.
You introduced it, and then
I
now we're going in a
I
different direction.
I don't know if Benji heard me right, but I said before we talk about
yeah, I
fantasy
heard it. I
football,
heard it.
let's do a quick recap about week one.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm just
heard.
making sure. It seemed like a build up to fantasy football, and then now we're just okay. No
Well,
problem.
I built it up, and I was like, before, let's take a step
Yes.
back. And then I did it pretty
Prior
good.
to the discourse.
Yeah,
surrounding
you're right.
fantasy
That was
football.
pretty good. Yeah. Sorry, I should have given you
But
more.
anyways, so to answer my question, any big takeaways, any teams that stood out, any teams that were disappointment?
Well, I think that a lot of the teams with there's as we know there was a lot of quarterback movement this offseason. And you think about all the quarterbacks in new places, all but one had, I think, pretty disappointing debuts. I'm going to let you try and guess who that one, I think the one person I'm talking about is who had a pretty solid
Probably Cam
first
Newton
game.
because he's on your fantasy football team.
That is correct. And not just because he's on my fantasy football team, but yes, that is important because the rest of my team is such trash. He's the only one that actually did better than he was supposed to.
That is true. There was a lot of talking about QBs. There's a lot of new QBs starting from either new teams or rookie quarterbacks. I mean, you have what, like 5 or 6
Yeah.
that are either first first playing QB for the first for a new team or first
I
time
would even throw
starting.
Joe Burrow in there as far as new quarterback and new system.
New Joe Burrow, you have Tyrod Taylor, you have obviously
Philip
Cam
Rivers,
Newton, you have Tom Brady, Teddy Bridgewater,
Philip Rivers.
Philip Rivers. That's what, 5 right there,
Yeah.
and the guy from the Buccaneers. I mean, not
J-
Buccaneers. Sorry, the Broncos. Broncos.
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock.
Though
Drew
he
Lock.
played a couple games
Did he
last
play a couple
season.
games?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like end
Oh,
I
of
okay.
wasn't
last
really
season,
considering
but
him when I said that most of them had disappointing starts, but
But you still
yeah, I
had.
I
guess
mean, he did
I
have
mean,
a disappointing
but
start.
you
yeah,
still had
Thank you.
5. You still had 5 quarterbacks. I
right.
mean, that's rare. 5 new quarterbacks are in brand new
Very.
systems to start the NFL season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true.
And I think that sorry, but quick one
No,
second
no.
thing. I think that it was surprising how it was surprising but also unsurprising at the same time how most of them kind of floundered here in week one. How maybe they weren't quite adjusted well to their system. But I mean, there's still guys like Rivers and Brady. I think that you were expecting to have much better games that were pretty disappointing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Brady, I'm honestly not too worried about. It was one game, really good competition too, of course, in New Orleans, so I wouldn't think too much of it. But Philip Rivers, I mean, he looked old.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I mean, he is old, and I think more than that, what doesn't help is that his throwing motion looks like he's like chucking the ball almost. So as he's gotten older, it's more and more concerning. But I would be Yeah, I would be much more worried about him than Brady, especially because, last season quarterback play was an issue for the Colts, and the rest of the team was really solid. So you would think Rivers is going to be a natural upgrade.
They've
And
never had good old lines either. I mean, think about how many times Andrew Luck, before he retired,
Man,
got
Peyton
hit
Manning.
every single game. And now
yeah,
you're putting an even older quarterback into that system. And I don't think they really improved that old line much. So I think, I mean, it's going to wear out Phillip Rivers
Yeah,
quite a
you,
bit.
you
yeah,
you see him in there, kind of like what Benji said. I mean, he's so obviously old. He takes like 5 seconds to throw the ball every time. He just like he holds it in there so long. Yeah, I
Well,
I
that's
think that
true.
between the two older free agent quarterback acquisitions, Tom Brady, Philip Rivers, I definitely think that Brady has a more optimistic look than Rivers does this.
Yeah, but even Brady just seemed to step slow these days. I mean, even last year he looked a little slower than normal.
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you
That's
can
true.
definitely see that his age is finally slowly catching up to him, and obviously, I mean, they had a stiff competition week one, given that they didn't have any
Yeah.
preseason games.
I do
So
agree with Benji
really,
though. I think that it's not that worrisome. I think that Brady will adjust to the system and
no,
you
I
know,
I no, I agree, but I think at the same time, like you have to, he's playing a tough division. I mean, he's playing,
yeah.
a new system. There's a lot of adjustments he needs to make too. Like he doesn't have the Julian Edelman, that he knows where he's going to be 90% of the time. Like,
Mhm.
he doesn't have the four running backs that, can catch it out of the backfield, that can run it, you know, just a whole new system for him.
That Saints team too. Man, it looked like they were just they didn't miss a beat. No preseason, no real offseason activities, and they looked just as good, just as fast as they did last year. That was pretty amazing. So yeah, I mean, tough, like you said, tough competition for Brady this week.
Yeah, no, definitely. I did like the Cardinals. I think they're gonna be a sleeper team in that division
You do a big win
too.
for them.
I mean that's a tough division already.
Yeah.
But I mean, so it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against Seattle. But I did
I think
like,
that was a statement win, to be honest. I know it's week one, but I think that, getting that over the Niners and how bad the Niners looked too, with just the way that like the Cardinals defense showed up in ways I didn't expect. And it looked like the way that Kyler Murray and was running that offense, like, and you were seeing that more and more in the NFL now. It seems like the sort of Big 12 air raid offense is becoming like more mainstream in the pros. And it I think that I don't know. I feel like, I mean, we'll see how the season goes, but I don't know how San Francisco and their kind of bruising defensive style can hold up against this sort of this up and coming air raid style that the Cardinals have and that the Seahawks can also do. You know, might be tough in
Yeah,
their division these days.
I was gonna say that's a big change from last year. Not necessarily. I mean, Russell Wilson had a great game in the win over the Falcons, but not necessarily that he had a great game, but that they really changed to a pass first offense. Typically they're very much an establish the run type of team, despite having an MVP caliber quarterback.
Also,
And this
despite
time,
the Super Bowl
yeah,
on the one sideline.
yeah, despite that, more generally, they're an established the run team. But yeah, here they came out throwing. Russell Wilson went 31 for 35, which
Mm.
pretty great stat line. And so, yeah, there were signs all off season too that Pete Carroll was finally going to transition to a heavily pass first offense rather than the style they've been using. And I think that bodes well for them moving forward. And yeah, also means a lot of trouble for the Niners, I would say, just because that division's so brutal.
which I think it's weird that, I mean, I think he's finally letting Russell Wilson, show everything he has. But think of all the quarterbacks this year that, are running quarterbacks. And like, you have Murray, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Joe Burrow now, you have Tyrod Taylor. I mean, Russell Wilson obviously can run. You have Cam Newton now too. So
Yeah.
it's curious. Like it's getting to the point where it's like, all right, like these coaches are finally adapting to letting the quarterbacks run more, which I think in the past we haven't seen it. But it just becomes even more difficult to defend a quarterback, that can run at any time. Like Elliott, Cam Newton had 15 rushing attempts,
Yeah.
which is like insane. That's probably more than some running backs get it all game long.
I saw some stat that said he had like 60 rushing yards, I think, through the first 3 quarters or something like that, which is the most of any Patriots quarterback in a single game in franchise history.
Yeah.
Which obviously makes sense for as long as they've had Brady, but yeah, that's a huge new weapon for them. And Bill Belichick is so good. I mean, he proves once again how amazing of a coach he is. Cam Newton was on the market for 86 days. He was unemployed as a quarterback. He was the last guy to get signed, and he goes and has the most successful week 1 outing and looks like his old self in a lot of ways, running around out there. I think old Bill, he works his magic yet again.
Well, he was so good because he adjusted the play calling to what fits Cam Newton and not making Cam Newton fit whatever Tom Brady was.
Exactly.
Which makes him so good. It's not like someone like Nagy, which I like Nagy, but he made Trubisky fit his playbook, not make his playbook fit Trubisky.
Speaking of Nagy and the Bears, we can't look over that insane game.
It was insane.
3 quarters of that game, Mitch Trubisky looked like he was done. He looked like last year's Mitch. He looked like he didn't belong in an NFL field. And then 4th quarter, Mitch comes around and he looks like 2018? Yeah, 2018 Mitch. 12-4 season Mitch. That was ridiculous. Also, the Lions lost that game in more ways, I think, than the Bears won it. But and that's coming from a Bears fan. But
I mean, just think about it. No one would have remembered this game we would remember Mitch being absolutely terrible if what's his face caught the ball in the end zone.
DeAndre Swift,
and basically, the Bears lost that game. Everyone would be like, "Yo, might as well start Nick Foles now."
That was I have him on my fantasy team too, so it was a tiny bit bittersweet. He was on my bench, but that was just an absolute gimme that he missed. I was texting my friend in Detroit after that game. He's like, "Man, this team does this to us every year." Think about all the close games the Lions have managed to choke in the last 2 or 3 seasons. They find new ways to lose.
So, do you think if the Bears would have lost that game, so he caught the touchdown, would we have a Nick Foles spotting in week 2?
I don't think so, just because that last drive left a good feel, so, or a good enough feel, not a good feel by any means, but it's pretty crazy because you look at his stats from the game, Trubisky's, and his stats look fine. He went 20 for 36, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But anyone who actually watched that game knows he was terrible for
the first 3 quarters. Yeah, I mean, he was a lot better in the 4th quarter, but he had so many passes too that definitely should have been picked, and especially in that first half. Like the Lions dropped a few for sure, and he was throwing in the end zone. It was the same thing. He was throwing 2 inches off of guys. He was inaccurate as hell.
Yeah, and now you guys hear about Allen Robinson?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I heard he cleared the air today.
Yeah,
practice.
Okay.
Bleacher Report reported that he talked to his coaches and kind of cleared the air about that whole thing. But I agree. I think at some point you got to pay him. I don't think he deserves to be like Mike Evans and DeAndre Hopkins type of money. But I mean,
but who else do the Bears have too?
But no, I agree. He should get market value money for a wide receiver. But I think you can also find there's so many wide receivers out there. I think you can find cheaper wide receivers if you want, to be the highest paid one. I don't think you can pay the highest. I don't think you can have Allen Robinson be the highest paid.
Although I think I saw something that said that the top of the receiver market's demanding like $30 million in value. So it's tough these days. So that the market is so and it's in such high demand, and the price is very 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 high even for guys like A-Rob. So
There's
Ryan,
always there's always good veterans out there,
yeah,
especially in
but I
free
mean he's a
agency.
surefire. He's a number one receiver, and the
No,
Bears
I
haven't had that
agree.
since Alshon Jeffrey. So they need to keep him, but it's gonna cost an arm and a leg. And frankly, this is Ryan Pace's fault, because if the Bears had taken care of this last offseason and not and had this simmer and become this huge dramatic issue where now he's unhappy with the team, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. So I think that's on management.
No, I agree. I agree on that. Think the biggest thing. I don't think he's gonna hold out anymore, but I think at some point people were talking about, having him held out, until he got a new deal or until he gets traded.
Yeah.
But it sounds more and more like he will be playing in week 2, which should be a big game for him because he didn't have that. I mean, he's always gets targets, but he didn't have that big of a game week 1. It was almost like the Anthony Miller show in the Jimmy Graham show.
Yeah, he had like a big catch in the fourth quarter, that like 40-yard catch or whatever. That was about it though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was like 4 for 52 yards or something like that.
And most of those 52 yards came on one catch. So this is one of those
yeah.
games. We'll see where that team goes.
But anyways, I say we flip over to some fantasy football here.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can go.
I was just gonna say, obviously, we're past week 1, so no one's drafting anymore. Everybody's got their teams.
I disagree. I got invited to a draft that's drafting tonight, but I declined.
How many, Josh? How many leagues are you in?
I'm in 1.5.
Oh, right. 1.5.
Benji has my other half of one league.
Right.
I can't do more than 2, like 1.5 teams, just because like at that point you're drafting every single player, so it's like
crazy.
Who do you root for?
And ESPN, by the way, is ESPN's fantasy football like set up not so much worse than Yahoo's?
It's set up worse or not set up worse?
Just the website. Isn't Yahoo's much better?
Oh, 100%. ESPN is for like 10-year-olds and younger, it seems like. It's like the most basic thing possible.
Right.
It's impossible to find. Like, I was like looking, where can I find the the teams in our league, in Benji and I's league. I was like, I have absolutely no clue where anyone is, what standing we are in. Benji and I have a great team in that team, and somehow we got blown out week 1.
Terrible.
We scored the second most points and get blown out.
Get your act together, ESPN.
I know, but anyways, so I still think there's a few leagues drafting, not much these days. But let's go back to our, when we drafted. Do you guys do any preparation prior to fantasy, or do you just kind of, wing it as we go?
Absolutely none. This was my least prepared year, which sucks because this was one of the busiest NFL off seasons I can remember. So much going on. So I feel like this was the year. This is probably the most imperative year for draft research. But I did virtually none. My strategy was basically remember the guys who did well last year and hope that they repeat this year, which never works in fantasy football. You know that the guy who are usually one of the most productive guys in one season is going to have a terrible year the next year. It's just how it goes. So I think
it's good if you have like those veterans, because typically like a veteran's gonna, as long as he doesn't get injured, he's gonna put up.
Yeah, right.
He's gonna continue to put up consistent numbers.
Yeah.
He's never gonna he's never gonna put up top level numbers, but he's never gonna put up terrible numbers.
But he might be more likely to get injured though.
True. What about you, Benji? Do you do any fantasy preparation, or you just pick the top available guy type of thing?
Basically that. I have like a big ranking sheet from someone else, like from one of those websites. So I look at that to try and find like better better players or better picks than like just the very basic Yahoo draft board rankings.
Yeah.
But I basically just go off that with like maybe a tiny bit of my own opinion. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm out here creating my own ranking spreadsheet beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
What
So
about you, Josh?
what I typically do is I typically just have the Yahoo rankings, like, in the draft room more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we kind of go farther down, I kind of like Google players and just see where they are on the depth chart. Just because all I want to do is get people that, are either the first or second string running backs, first or second string wide receivers. This year, unfortunately, because I was entering in every single player and all this other stuff, I did absolutely, I had no time to do anything. So I was literally just picking players that I knew, that put up decent numbers in the past. So like I took Kirk, I took Jameis Crowder, I took Carlos Hyde. I just took players that I knew about and knew that are consistent, kind of what you did this year, Elliot, just because I didn't have, I literally zero time to do any research during draft time.
Can I just clarify what Josh is saying is he was way too busy this year because our league that all the three of us are in did something a little bit different this year with our draft. We normally do just a regular online snake draft on Yahoo. Not much to it. But this year we decided with a lot of feedback from the rest of our league and a lot of opinions, we decided to change it up and do an offline kind of a snake auction draft hybrid type of thing. And basically Josh had to manually enter in every single name and find their Yahoo price. So we had a salary cap on our draft and each player was assigned a value. So he had to create this entire spreadsheet and then get other people to help make algorithms on that spreadsheet for him. So it was Josh had to do a lot of work this year, and
it wasn't like that. That stuff was mostly copy and paste. But the hardest part was once the draft started, like because how we had it was I was the only one who can edit it.
Yeah.
So like I had to manually enter everyone's pick. It was it automatically went to everyone's draft board, but like it didn't give me time to research how I typically research.
Right, you couldn't do it for
just
your
because
own
like
team.
I was then on the clock and I was like, all right, it's unfair if
And you didn't have time before the draft because you were too busy creating the draft.
Yeah, I mean, but it's before the draft. It's hard just because you don't exactly know if some wild card person is going to take a kicker in the 5th round or quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round. It's some people in our league just unpredictable.
That's
so.
true.
So you can only do so much prepping pre-draft, just because at the end of the day, you always have that one or two person on your draft or in your league that goes for their favorite player or just goes for players just because they're on their favorite team or whatever. So and I think we have a couple of those people on our team in our league. So I think it's hard to do a lot of
pre-draft research,
pre-draft preparation almost.
Yeah. What did you guys think of this of the draft that we did, the new offline hybrid draft?
I think it was more of a salary cap than less of an. I don't think we can't call it an auction draft at all because we didn't auction off. But I think it was just a snake with a salary cap. But anyways, Benji, what were you saying?
I think it was a good idea overall. I do think loading up for something. I do think that the salary cap was perhaps a bit high, and this was to the detriment of certain teams that sucked last year and then did not have any good keepers and now suck again. But
are you referring to your own team as
just certain teams? Okay. Just certain teams.
Shall remain
perhaps
to be honest, I'm like one of those teams. I had good keepers, but my team sucked last year.
I disagree, Benji. I think that I know you're talking about certain teams, but I don't think your team last year was that terrible, and so I don't know how much it affected you. As
the problem is I didn't have any running backs to keep. And everyone keeps running backs, and then the first 8 picks were all the decent remaining running backs.
So how did the high salary cap affect that? Because if it's high, then when it comes your time to pick, you can pick an expensive like I don't understand how
But there was
But
no one there. He's basically saying.
like because
that's
no
what
one
I'm trying
else
to say
has
because
no
Like
one
there
else
was
is
only
motivated
like
to stay.
two
Right.
$50 value players by the time,
Got it.
or by the time we started, because we had the keeper league.
Yeah. Everyone else
then-
in front of him is going to spend money on more expensive players because
Yeah,
there's no reason
exactly.
not to.
I think I like the salary cap. I think it's something a lot of people should consider
Mhm.
in the future because it definitely adds a new element to it.
Yeah.
I think next year we should add the salary cap too, but I think the remaining balance we should be able to bid on the waivers.
Yeah, that'd be a
So
great
that
idea.
way you have an incentive. You have an incentive either to spend everything on the draft or spend less on the draft, and you're gonna get top waived players.
I agree, but my only concern is that might be way too much effort for some
Yeah,
people
yeah,
in
I
the
agree.
league.
Like,
to
but
try and figure out.
maybe instead of bidding on waiver wise, you can only whatever. Like, if you have $10 left, you can only pick up 10 guys. Too. Like maybe everyone costs $1. I don't know. It's just a thought.
I think
It's something we have to look into because some people in our draft had $50 left over compared to someone who had $0 left over. So we need to have like a balance of where that money goes to after.
But I do agree with Benji for separate reasons. I think that the salary cap is very high, and that didn't like even the people in the draft who were spending the most money. It didn't really affect them all that much. Like it wasn't really a challenge, which sort of defeated the purpose in general. You might as well just made it all free because we didn't really, it didn't affect us. So I mean,
I agree.
So and it feels like one of these days, like or one of these years, we're gonna do an auction draft. It's just gonna happen. It's inevitable. Like there's too many people clamoring for it. It feels like we're approaching our way there. So we'll see how long it takes.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's just lowering the salary cap. Like I mean that might be the one way. It's just lower the salary.
That's the short-term answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
But I do like the idea of keepers and having that go towards salary cap for sure.
My next thing is, I was thinking if we continue this trend of salary cap keepers, is you can now only keep one guy that you kept from the year past.
Oh, that would be nice.
So that way it kind of recycles the players.
As opposed to the two, because we're keeping two guys from our league.
So like we would keep two guys, but you can only keep one guy from the year prior and one new guy on your roster.
Gotcha.
That way, it just recycles the players. That way, it's not like we're, playing franchise mode in Madden. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that. We're just, trying things up. Keep everyone, incentivized to, keep playing fantasy football. But just an early, early 2020 thought for 2021 fantasy. So
I like it. The commissioner is thinking ahead. Always thinking about ways to improve.
Yeah, but anyways,
I think we should enough about our league. We should give some recommendations to people out there who are looking for fantasy gold this year.
Well, before we go that, I mean, Elliot's, me and Benji, we have basic names, okay? I'm Team Josh.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
You have Team Ben.
Ben's team, actually.
So, Elliot, how do you determine your team names here? Because obviously Benji and I suck at that.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I think there's a space for basic named individuals. They have a right to exist on fantasy football, just like the more creative people. But the one thing I don't suggest doing is going on the internet and looking up best fantasy football names.
Really?
Because
I just Googled one. There's some good ones out there. The Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's good. Like that's pretty good.
They just seem
feels like
so
you're
high
chasing-
effort, though.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. It feels like it's extremely low, and you're just chasing like whatever. It's the
So
definition of not.
what's your team name, Elliot? For
My
our
team
for our
name-
fans.
I typically go with
You
a
don't
name.
know?
No, I do know, but I go with a name that is generally, that's not always, but oftentimes ends up being not exactly safe for work. So I don't know if this is a fan.
You have a
podcast.
PG
I don't
version
know
of
if I
it?
can say it. There really is no way to make it PG. version.
Okay.
It's I'll just say it's a reference to a TV show, the sort of the fantasy football television show that is no longer on air anymore, called The League. Classic sitcom, and it's they had a lot of vocabulary in that show, 99% of which is definitely not appropriate, and so it's a
Okay.
reference to that. And it's also a reference to someone in our league, who loves getting particular players from a particular university, and the more he does, the more he loves his team, and the more that love becomes bigger than fantasy football. And so it may also be a joke about about the way that certain people look at their rosters. And
With
what
excitement.
and how they react. So anyway, I'm proud of it, but it's also my name from last year, so I have to change it. So I'm in the process of thinking of new
All
names.
Right. Once you figure that out, let us know, and we'll
Sounds
dive
good.
dive
Here's my one
the
suggestion. I'll
name.
say it's something that I could definitely share that is appropriate, that I usually like to do when naming my teams, is pick a player or two or whatever, and come up with some sort of
Slogan or
like a
saying
play
or
on words on that
something.
player. I think that's always a good way to go. You see a lot of people do that because it's easy, but there's still room for originality there. That's something that I usually like to go with first.
Okay.
But it needs to be short and like simple enough, Like
Yeah.
that's the problem I had with the one you said you Googled, Josh, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like that's
It's long.
Yeah, like that's a long thing, that's very clearly like some like high effort name that someone looked up or figured out, like a nice simple slogan.
Something also in the vein of simplicity. Probably refrain from using emojis or symbols in your name. As one person in our league, apparently their name is entirely emoji based, and it also doesn't make sense in general. But even besides that, I would say go with English is a good idea. Yeah. Use English words, and not emojis.
Yeah, definitely. But anyways, let's jump. I only have a few more minutes, so let's jump into some what do you guys think? Sleepers, best pickups. With that, any one that you drafted or someone else drafted that you think is gonna have a big year? I think, for me personally, I think Cam Newton's gonna have a huge year, and I really wanted Cam Newton, but unfortunately, Elliot, you snatched him right before I was going to, and I wanted Russell Wilson, and he got snatched right before I wanted to take him too. So, any thoughts on any sleepers there?
I guess I'll go with David Johnson was someone for me that I really wanted, and that the results I think thus far have shown that he's going to have a big year. Obviously, health is always going to be an issue with him. And, that type of thing I think can happen to, like, honestly, anyone at the running back position, really. So you don't know. But, I mean, so far, for as much as everyone made fun of the trade for him, and it deserved to be made fun of, it deserved to be mocked, to be clear. But I felt like because it got mocked so much and because O'Brien traded for him, he was going to be a key part of the offense. They wouldn't have made that deal if they didn't plan on using him that way. And I think it only, the idea of trading DeAndre Hopkins and getting David Johnson in return, like even if it wasn't working out, they were going to keep using him anyway. So you saw the results from the first week. He had almost 100 yards on the ground. He had a touchdown. He was involved in the passing game and should continue to be moving forward. So
as long as he doesn't tear another ligament.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, injury is always a concern, but if he does stay healthy the whole time, I think he's going to actually end up in the top tier of running backs, and he's going as like a mid-tier back.
Elliot, who's your sleeper? Finish us off, just because I gotta head out right
Josh
after
is running
this.
low on time. Okay, so so I don't know how much of a sleeper he is, to be honest, but he went very low in our draft, and that's Will Fuller. I know because I got him late in like the 7th, 8th round or so. which was very surprising to me because he is the number one receiver in Houston now, and I think he showed that definitely in week one. I think there probably wasn't a whole lot of hype on him because he has a tendency to drop balls, and Deshaun Watson likes to spread the ball around, and no one knew quite how it was going to be with DeAndre Hopkins not there. So I do think, though, he has a lot of upside, and they definitely showed in week one that they're going to rely on him heavily because they really don't have anyone else behind him. So, I guess you can make the argument for Kiki Kuti, but
Randall Cobb's there, right?
Randall Cobb is there as well, but he's older. He's definitely their he's their slot receiver at the moment. But look for Will Fuller to get definitely the lion's share of the targets in Houston, assuming that they throw the ball enough and they don't just pound the rock with David Johnson, like Benji said that they will try and do, which I agree that they will do. But definitely look out for Will Fuller on that same team.
That's a good one right there too. Will Fuller is definitely a good value. Both on the same team. Interesting.
Sleeper picks on the Houston Texans. Maybe that says something about the team. Maybe the whole team is a sleeper team.
It might be. But anyways, I gotta head out
right. Josh is
now.
go.
But
this is a shorter one today.
A shorter little fantasy. Next week we'll probably get into take a week off from the sports, and we'll hit some e-learning with Professor Ben and student Elliot. We'll take some deep dive into that conversation.
Maybe we can simulate an online class between me, the student, and Benji, the professor.
Exactly, and the babysitter, Josh. But.
Yeah, right. Also, want to try getting some movie, TV show recommendations in there because everyone's at home, quarantine. We're still watching TV, so hopefully we can do that too.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll talk about it soon.
All right, sounds good. Goodbye, guys.
All right, bye.
Later. Goodbye, everybody.